how
Okay.
do I find out what is my personality now? Am I an SUV? Am I a Ferrari?
It's really tricky. So let me just explain a little bit about what each of the personality types is. These 9 types, each one of them, as I said, is a different coping mechanism. Determining your type is a little tricky. The easiest way is to sort of look at each of the 9 types. Each one has a core unconscious fear. It tells you what's the greatest fear you have that your ego is trying to protect you from, and then that shapes the lens through which you see everything, including money. Now, to figure out your type, you can go to my website, douglynham.com, and there's a test there you can take. You can read my book, Taming Your Money Monster, which will also kind of give you a much more in-depth explanation. But typing yourself is often very tricky. It can take months or years to really get it right, but some of these tests can help speed that process. But if you want kind of an armchair analysis, I can give you, maybe we could try to figure out your type, give one example, and then your listeners can sort of follow along and see how the process works. So here's how it works. In the neurobiology, there's a guy named Jaak Panksepp, who is an affective neuroscientist. He discovered that there's 3 core negative emotions in all mammals. All right. So we have these 3 core negative, all of our negative emotions, whatever they are running off of these 3 core circuits. And there's lots of variety and complexity as you move up into the brain of human beings. But in the limbic system, this is the most primal, basic part of your emotional circuitry. There's just 3 core negative emotions. And that's going to be anger. It's going to be grief and shame. So grief, shame are kind of the same. And then the third one is fear. So think of it, anger, shame, and fear are those 3 core emotions. And then there's 3 ways to process each of them. You can internalize that pain, which is like giving yourself an emotional wedgie. You can externalize that pain, which is kind of like having a food fight with the world, or you can have both. You can have both of those operating. So let's see if we can figure out your type. And this requires some honest, if I get too personal, or you don't want to answer anything, you feel free to, bow out. But you want to think about go back to your if you're, because as we age, we mature. Our Enneagram type, our type remains the same throughout our lives, but it changes as we grow and mature. It has a growth model built into it. So your behaviors and your personality do develop and look very different, hopefully, in your later life than they do when you're younger. But you want to think about in your darkest emotional moments, particularly in your teens and 20s, even now, it doesn't matter how old you are. Which of those negative emotions do you tend to feel more of? Do you tend to feel, when things go bad or wrong in life, do you feel more anger? Do you feel more grief or shame? Or then do you feel more fear? So anger, grief, shame, fear. Which of those resonates with you a bit more?
Okay, yeah, let's dive into it. So I would say anger, not. I don't feel that much of anger. I think if I would have to think about those more negative thoughts, it would go definitely towards shame or fear. For example, specifically shame. What would other people think of me? For example, I run businesses and I really want to do everything always right. So what if I don't do it right and then people talk bad about me? That's something, or definitely a feeling I have present. And the other one would be shame in that sense as well, saying like, okay, I fear that this happens and what how do I look like now? So
Yeah.